Welcome back, everybody. If you don't know who I am, my name is Hallie, also known as the Highlighted Pinup. And what I do is take your random questions about hair and try to answer them to the best of my ability. In today's video, oily hair. If you caught my videos on TikTok, you'll know the basic premise of what we're talking about. And if you didn't, don't worry, don't go looking for them because I'm actually going to be deleting them. Because due to the time restraint on TikTok, I feel that they probably cause more confusion than clarification. Before we get started, I want to preface this video. There's a possibility you are a very oily person naturally. So if you're someone who perhaps is prone to sebaceous cysts or body acne, or perhaps you're on a medication that makes your sebum levels go up, it's a possibility that you're going to have more of a battle doing these methods. It doesn't mean that you can't get any success out of it. It's just a matter of reining in those expectation levels and making sure that you have a reasonable expectation at the end of this. Initially, I wanted to make this video with kind of dirty hair, that hasn't been washed for a couple days, but I was invited to an event last minute and it was mid-century themed, so I had to wash and set my hair. So that didn't pan out quite as well, but I figured you'd want the video versus me waiting another week for me to not wash. Back into it. Expectations. Expectations are a big one. So some of the feedback that I've been getting on the videos is my hair gets oily if I don't wash in 3 days, or there's this or there's that. And if you are already kind of oily as it is, it would absolutely make sense that you would get oily closer to wash day. That's not an expectation that I think people should have. It's not like you'll never get oily again. It's not that your hair won't produce any oil, it will just be much less. So that's been some of the feedback. I'll get into why you may get oily initially right after a wash, or why in 2 days, and all of those little tips and tricks. So bear with me. Something else I get a lot is, I don't understand the struggle. Like, I'm a stylist, so I don't get it or anything like that. Let me break this down for you. Even when I was a stylist, when I was a baby stylist, I was washing my hair twice a day. Twice. I was getting that oily. I didn't care about my products. I didn't invest in them. I went to bed with a wet head. I did towel tornadoes. I overprocessed it when I felt like it, and I could never get my hair to grow past my shoulders. And I had this impression that I had bad hair. And I just was like, this is what it is, so what do I care? And then what started to change my mind on that is I was getting clients in really regularly who had hair similar to mine, but it was much better. And I was like, what is going on? And one of the common denominators with them were they don't wash their hair a lot, or they're really nice to it overall, and they use good products. So I started to think that maybe there was some after effect to this, and that had some merit. That's what got me to a point where I decided I wanted to try to do this, right? And I was really skeptical. I was like, this is not gonna work for me, but I will do it anyways. So I think there was a little bit of confusion in what I was saying to do for techniques initially in the video that I posted on TikTok. Totally makes sense. It's just a minute. It wasn't enough time. So I say usually some of the reasons you get oily is your overwashing, your product choices, and your habits. So let's start with the overwashing. If you wash your hair all the time, your skin will freak out and start producing a lot more oil. That's what happens. You keep stripping it so it gets dry, and as a result, your skin overproduces the oil. So what I say is probably a average washing schedule when you start this is you don't do it all at once. This can take a long time to regulate. I took 6 months to regulate so I can wash 3 times a day. It took me about 2 years to regulate to a point where I can wash my hair once or twice a week or longer. So this isn't a short thing. This takes time. So you look at your washing schedule, think of it almost in blocks when you're starting out. So week 1 through 2 or 3, depending on your comfort level, day 1 you'll wash. And then on day 1, after it's clean and dry, you'll apply a little bit of dry shampoo. Just you don't go really heavy in with it. It's just a light dusting. The concept there is to make sure that you have dry shampoo on the scalp when the oil produces, so that way it doesn't just cake on there and you're trying to work against yourself. That's the theory with that one. Now, a sidebar to that, if you're using a very, very clarifying dry shampoo, like a charcoal based or something like that, it will work like a shampoo. And as a result, it will strip the oils and it will make your hair, again, overproduce oil. So when you're starting off with this, try light to heavier ones instead of working your way backwards, because it's ultimately going to help you regulate your sebaceous glands quicker. Now, if you don't like dry shampoo, you don't have to use dry shampoo. I just found this to be easier from my feedback that I've gotten from my clients. I did this without dry shampoo. It wasn't really a thing when I started this. We had like 2 on the market. One was Psst. I think some of you are probably way too young to even know what that is. So you don't have to use this with dry shampoo. It's just a little bit easier if you like the product. All right, so clean dry hair, day 1, a little bit of dry shampoo. Day 2, maybe a little bit more dry shampoo or leaving it alone. And then day 3, you're going to wash and you're going to restart this process. You're going to do that cycle, like I said, from week 1 to 3, depending on your comfort level. Then the next block of weeks, either 2 through 5 or 3 through 6, depending, you're going to take a shampoo out. That's just kind of the idea, is just removing a shampoo and doing that for a week or 2 until you find your comfort level. So you don't want to start off and just be like, I'm an everyday washer and I'm just going to wash once a week. You're going to be miserable. You can most certainly try to tough it out like that, but you're probably going to hate life. Hopefully that clarified some points for everyone and they understand that a little bit better, that you're not just pulling all your washing out all at once. Because I was a twice a day washer, when I first started this, my first block was like, I'm only going to wash once a day. And then I'm going to wash once every other day, and then once every 2 days, and so on and so forth. And that's how I got to this point. If you have something like bangs that lay on your forehead or things like that, you'll probably end up having to wash them because they sit on your face and you're like, that produces oil. It's kind of like one of those things, but that's totally okay. You can wash your bang area and just leave the rest of your hair alone if that's the thing for you. So again, you can kind of pick and choose what you need to do and what works and what's custom for you. I talk about product choice a lot. And one thing with product choice is also proper shampooing techniques. So I have a video on that if you guys haven't seen it. That's how you're supposed to be washing your hair. But another thing with proper shampooing, and I didn't say this in my shampoo video because it didn't dawn on me at the time, so I'm going to revisit this. If you're getting oily really, really quickly, there's a possibility you're actually not rinsing all of your shampoo out. And that may sound really stupid because you're like, listen, I don't know things, but I do know how to rinse my hair with shampoo. This is actually a hard thing to do. It's almost hard to gauge. So when you're rinsing shampoo, you'll get to a lather and then kind of that sudsy where you can hear a couple bubbles. Then it will go into a slippery phase, a stiff phase, and then it should feel like rubber. And if you got that rubber or water repellent, good job. You're now actually feeling the natural oils on your hair. Most people tend to pull back when they feel the slip and then they go ahead and apply their conditioner. It's actually not rinsed out all the way from the hair. If you're feeling that slip or stiffness, you still have a little bit to go. So pay attention to that. It's a little bit tricky at first. If someone has super fine hair, it usually takes about like a minute to rinse out. If someone has really thick hair, it can take upwards of 2 minutes and like 2 to 3 minutes to really get in there and make sure all of it is out. So if you have any residue of shampoo left in the hair, it will add a layer on top of it, make you greasy, and then as a result, you're stuck in this cycle. Caveat to that, if you're using a clarifying, chelating, volumizer, or maybe a dandruff shampoo, that will absolutely get your hair super squeaky clean. You probably won't get that repellent feeling because you are stripping all the natural oils off your head. I usually don't recommend those types of shampoos in your normal wash cycle, maybe once a week if you're using something medicated, or once a month if you're using like a clarifier. And the reason for that is back down to this concept. If you keep stripping all of the oil off your scalp and hair, it will cause your scalp to overproduce. What types of product cause your scalp to overproduce oil? Well, we have the big four that seem to be irritants, which is panthenol, silicone, sulfates, and fragrance. So if you guys really love your Herbal Essence shampoo, there's a good chance it may be giving you some problems. So those are things to look for and to start to swap out of. Like I've said before, I'm not a big fan of panthenol. I don't think it's evil. I just tend not to use it a lot. The other thing panthenol can do is it can coat onto your actual scalp. And what dandruff is caused by is a fungus. So what happens is when the panthenol coats on your scalp, people tend to get oily and dandruff because their actual scalp isn't getting exfoliated. Their hair feels fine, but their skin isn't. So that's something to keep in mind. If you get any sort of random bumps or outbreaks or sometimes almost like scabs on your scalp, that's usually due to those four in some way, shape, or form that would cause you that irritation. So if you are someone who's getting really oily, look at your products first before you start putting yourself down. Because like I said, the beauty industry makes their money off of your insecurities, and keeping you insecure, it's a big one. So look at your shampoos and conditioners first and make sure there's none of those adjuvants in it before you start to really go gung-ho and be like, nothing ever works for me. And none, I don't mean none. What I mean is if you're having these problems, eliminate those one at a time until you can narrow down what's good, what's bad. And this isn't limited to professional products. I'll give an example. I love Oribe, wonderful products. I am highly sensitive to certain fragrances, so I can't use their entire line in one styling session. So I know I can't use their shampoo, their conditioner, their leave-ins, and then their stylers, or else my scalp will break out. So that's a super high-end brand. That doesn't really have anything to do with it. That's just a matter of fragrance and what my skin can handle. So keep that in mind too. It doesn't necessarily mean if you're going more expensive, you'll get better results in this scenario. Now the next one, habits. So always and forever, wet head living. You guys know that I'm against it. Your hair does not like to be in a constant state of wetness, and neither does your skin. So let's think about this in a real broad term. If you leave a baby in a diaper too long, they start to chafe, right? Because all that moisture's on your skin, and your skin doesn't like to be damp like that all the time and have it trapped. That's basically the same thing that happens with your scalp. It gets irritated because it's still skin. That doesn't change, it's still skin. So as a result, if you don't allow your hair to dry all the way, we all know, we saw the mold videos, that can happen. I wouldn't worry too much about that. With that, you can also, that's how you can get the fungal development from getting dandruff and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. A lot of reasons why I'm against the wet hair thing is not because it's just really hard on your hair, but it's just not good for your skin overall. Also with habits, when you play with your hair. So if you're someone who flips it here, does this, does that, blah, 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 all throughout the day, you're probably gonna get oily. My biggest battle just generally is teenage girls. They play with their hair all the time. I even just watch videos and they're just like, and you're gonna get oily. Massage and a lot of stimulation on the scalp causes your sebaceous glands to produce more oil. And when you run your hands through it, your hands also have oil on them. So you're just kind of constantly making the problem worse. So the reality of the situation, if you play with your hair a lot and you're not willing to break that habit, or at least try to, you're probably not gonna get much success with any technique I give you. Another big obstacle people have is just the mental aspect of it. Skipping shampooing and dropping your washing schedule and things like that is very much a mental game. We all have this idea of what hair should do or feel or this or that. And when you start this, it takes a lot to get over these concepts that you've created for yourself, these standards. So be patient with that. Give yourself some time. It's much easier said than done. So just know that a big part of what you're going to be doing is just fighting an internal idea. There's a good chance your hair doesn't look bad at all. But if you stare at it long enough, you're gonna notice all its flaws and you're gonna convince yourself that it's dirty. Some troubleshooting. Day after washing or day of washing, I'm super oily. This actually makes a lot of sense. So what happens when you have freshly washed hair is, again, stripping that oil off, and initially your glands may be like, what is going on? Produce all the oil. So a lot of times people will be super oily like day 1 to day 2, but then it kind of stops. And that's because by day 3, your scalp's like, oh, we've got oil here. Cool. So it doesn't mean it stops producing oil, but the rate in which it produces oil, it pulls back a ton. So sometimes you just kind of have to get through that hurdle and get through that. Dry shampoo topic. I hear this a lot. I break out when I use dry shampoo. I don't like dry shampoo, what have you. So let's break that down into a couple segments. If you're having an irritation or reaction to a dry shampoo, 2 things to check for: fragrance and talc. So a lot of over-the-counter dry shampoos are made with talcum powder and not starches, which is your big difference. Talcum powder is actually made with this jagged little molecule. So back in the day when they used to have like talcum makeup, what would happen is that these molecules would wedge underneath your skin and cause these little bumps. And they're not acne, it's because the molecule actually kind of wedges into that layer of skin and then it pushes through. So if you have a talc-based dry shampoo, talcum powder dry shampoo, sorry, I had to yell at the dogs. I am recording. Anyway, so yes, talcum powder can absolutely cause an adverse reaction in your dry shampoo. So can fragrance. Those are a big one. Kind of what I use is, if you can use cornstarch and that doesn't bother you, then you should probably be able to use a nice quality dry shampoo. If you do, for whatever reason, have an agitation to starch, then absolutely dry shampoos are not what you're looking for. So again, they're just like any product, they're not necessarily made for everybody. It's really comes down to preference. Another one I get a lot is, I don't like the way dry shampoo feels. So there's 2 things to that. If you can feel it on your scalp, like after even 5 or 10 minutes after application, and you're just like walking around and you're like, ugh, I can feel it, you're probably using too much, or you're using one that's too aggressive. Again, start low and build up and be sparing with it versus just dumping it all on your scalp. Now, if you're talking about how it feels on your hands, get your hands out of your hair. I don't want to hear that complaint. Also on the dry shampoo train, sometimes I feel like when I use dry shampoo, I get more oily. That absolutely makes sense. Back to that concept of they're not for everybody. Dry shampoos are in fact true to their name. They are working like a shampoo, so they will strip oil. So if you're not super oily naturally, a lot of times it can be counterproductive because it'll then draw off the oil off the scalp and make you more oily. So that is a completely fair and logical complaint. It's possible that you, again, are using one too aggressive, using too much of one, or you need to just not use it at all. Other things to take into consideration: unprocessed hair or virgin hair will get oily more quickly than processed hair does. That's because the cuticle on the strand is much more compact and does not absorb oil as quickly. So you may be in that situation where you're adding a wash in. Depending, it's not to say that you can't push it to once or twice a week. If you are natural, you just may have to gauge that a little bit better. So that's a matter of preference and what your actual hair does and is. So that's something. Another one is, oh, I get itchy. It's not uncommon to get itchy closer to wash day. Now, if you're getting itchy within a 24-hour period of shampooing, my assumption is going to be that you're probably having an agitation to the product. So something that you're using is causing that. So it's not instantaneous, but as it's worn on your scalp, all of a sudden your scalp's like, I don't like this. This sucks. So, and that's another way products can become habit forming, and this insecurity concept that when you start scratching, you're going to start producing a lot of oil because you're overstimulating it, and you're probably itchy because of the product you're using and because your skin's not liking it. So you can absolutely have skin that dries out and also overproduces a bunch of oil. It's trying to compensate itself. So check your product first, But if you're someone who's like, yeah, by day 4 I get itchy, totally normal. That pretty much has to deal with how your hair is kind of like any strands that want to shed out are stuck in there, or maybe some skin needs to be exfoliated and pushed off that's ready to go. So all of that is really, really normal. That's the overview of oily hair and the comments and conversations I've been getting. With this topic in particular, please, if you have more questions, leave them here. So that way I have more room to write about them and I can explain them a little bit better, because from trial and error on TikTok on this subject, it's a miss. So yeah, leave them here. And of course, if you have a stylist that you love or you find one, listen to them, let them guide you, not some rando on the internet. And you can normally leave comments on my TikTok, but leave them here for this video, and I will do my best to find them, and then I will do my best to answer them. Bye.